hundreds taken into custody amid reports of ICE agents being fired upon. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said on X, quote, "This is quickly becoming one of the largest operations since President Trump took office." Meanwhile, President Trump is set to visit Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he is expected to announce $70 billion worth of investment in AI and energy for the state. Joining us now to discuss is Mike Leon, Director of Strategy, Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and host of Can We Please Talk podcast, and Tony Kinnett, national correspondent, The Daily Signal, and host of Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So good afternoon to you. Good to see you both. Starting with you, Mike, today. Give us your thoughts on the contrasting narratives. DHS claiming child rescue and forced labor versus critics alleging abuse of farm workers and overreach.
Well, first off, good to see you both. We thoroughly enjoyed this afternoon, Tuesday at 2 p.m. spot. So, Don, I love the way you just asked this question, because this is a two wrongs don't make a right thing. So let me start with the high level part of this, right? With California's legal marijuana industry and $5 billion or so that industry brings in, right? These two farms in Camarillo out there in California, 361 folks were arrested, right, in these raids. Four of them had been prior convicted of crimes. That's 0.011%. Four of them have been prior convicted of crimes, right? But when you drill a little bit more into the numbers in that arrest, 14 of them were minors, right? Now, California obviously has where if you're, within the age of 12 to 16, you can work after school hours on a farm. If you're between 16 up until about 18, you can obviously work as well. If you don't go to school, you have to prove that you don't have to be in school. But no one under the age of 21 is supposed to be working at a cannabis farm. So this is kind of one of these things where it's like these two wrongs don't make a right. Like if the farm was actually having workers there that are underage and all of these day workers that are illegal now, according to the new administration, right? It's been since January. We've been 6 months into this administration. You've known about the policy changes of this administration. You know now that undocumented is not a civil offense anymore. It's a criminal offense. So if this farm had all of these workers that were working there, forget about the wages for a second and what they make and things like that, and the child labor stuff just for a second. If you knew that all of these folks were undocumented and are now considered illegal according to the new laws of the United States of America, that isn't coming upon you to fix that and ratify that. And so this is, again, two wrongs don't make a right. It's part of the larger narrative of 2025 and social media postings of all of these ICE raids and things like that. But it doesn't change the fact that all these folks were potentially there illegal, and there were some minors that were working at the farm as well, when the farm had said there wasn't any minors that were working there. So again, two wrongs do not make a right, Don.
And Tony, same question to you. And is there enough evidence to confirm forced child labor, trafficking, or exploitation?
I don't see any evidence right now of forced child labor and trafficking in this particular situation. Those are heavy allegations. I like to see the evidence on the plate in front of me before I make one like that. But I would like to say one thing, and I think this is something that Mike will agree with me on for sure. Regarding the packing plant in Omaha, regarding the cannabis farm in California, and I don't really see any reason to treat this farm specially because it's a cannabis farm. Again, whether it's making hemp for blunts or for making rope, it doesn't really matter to me in this situation. It's a farm that's not part of the food chain, as one side of the aisle has been saying narratively. The other side, I think, is dunking on it because it's a pot farm, and so that's easy for conservatives to dunk on. Realistically, though, who's operating these farms? Who's operating these packing plants? Who has been taking advantage of undocumented illegal immigrant labor who have either, A, as we saw in the Nebraska packing plant, they were falsifying E-Verify documents. That is a felony. You can't do that. I can't give someone a fake social security number. That's not allowed. Someone who comes into this country and didn't do so properly, who doesn't have the right TIN, who gives fake E-Verify documents to try to sneak through the system. I want to know, does this individual who owns these cannabis farms, who was a donor to Gavin Newsom, did he know these were illegal immigrants? Did he know these were people who went through the process legally or illegally? That's what I'm more concerned about. I want to cut off the incentive at the source. I want individuals who work in this country to be paid a fair and living wage based on terms they agreed upon, not underselling to sneak around the law. That's not fair to Americans. That's not fair to legal immigrants who came here to work properly. And again, if there are individuals offering these kind of opportunities, we're currently in the middle of an investigation on construction companies hiring illegal immigrants to skirt a lot of standards. I think that what we're looking for in the next couple of weeks is some actual indictments and prosecutions to those who are participating in the exploitation.
So, Mike, you said earlier, two wrongs don't make a right. There's another aspect to this. Your thoughts on reports of ICE agents being fired upon and the fact that DHS Assistant Secretary says sanctuary politicians are demonizing ICE and CBP potentially, contributing to that?
Yeah, well, first off, violence against police officers, I think we're all on the same page on this, is wrong, right? Peacefully protesting, potentially skirting that line of impeding, as we saw in these farm videos, and we saw some folks that were arrested that were part of that 361 number that I mentioned that don't even work at the farm. They're relatives of some of the workers. So again, you get into that gray area, right? But when you start actually trying to harm some of these officers, you're in the wrong. You're in the wrong when you start to do that. But, back to what you just asked, Don, about the second part of this is with respect to politicians and demonizing ICE. Again, folks, I don't know how many times I have to say this when I come on this program, right? Like, elections have consequences. When, again, I was at the RNC, the signs did not have an asterisk on them. They said mass deportations. The policy wasn't flushed out, but here we are, and the policy is now flushed out. There has been a change with respect to immigration enforcement in this country. You are now 6 months now. You've seen all the stories. Anybody who's out there right now that is in this country right now, if you're undocumented or you're illegal and you're listening to me right now, you happen to be watching NTD News, thanks for watching. Do me a favor, visit an immigration attorney ASAP and know that you could potentially be sent out of this country. Also, for these local leaders with respect to R&D, these are laws that are on the books. These are why elections have consequences. These are things that the administration, this has nothing to do with whether or not I voted for Donald Trump. This has to do with now the level of frustration I have with people saying, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I asked for. No, this is exactly what you signed up for. This is exactly what you asked for, because they're enforcing the laws according to the books and according to what the executive branch of the United States government, there's three branches. The executive branch is wanting to carry out this policy. It's a change. Before, it was civil. Now it's criminal. And if you are an employer in one of the largest states, back to Tony's point, and you knew that this administration was going to do that, and you knew you had time to comply with getting your workers documented in the proper documentation, and you didn't do that, now you can't run to media, you can't run to politicians to look for that safe haven. I'm starting to get sick of it. If you can see it in my voice, and I know Tony's going to nod along with this, it's because these are all changes that we've all been accustomed to now. And unfortunately, as a media, we're covering these stories. Yeah, some of them are potentially incredibly callous. Some of them involve children of the parents that are being here. But this is what happens when elections have consequences. And now we know 6 months into this, what bears from this. So you have to comply with this stuff, or you risk, potentially going to a detention center or somebody dying like that was trying to evade law enforcement. It would have been better to be captured than actually losing your life over this. So that's what I would answer in terms of your questions, Don.
Okay, Tony, we saw you nodding. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, again, this is why I love this segment, is because Mike is not only a very reasonable guy, but he also understands what's black and white on the table regarding the data, regarding the laws. These laws are on the books. They've been on the books for a while, despite several administrations on the left and right kind of playing softball as far as prosecutorial discretion is concerned and deciding they don't want to push forward with the law. We just saw the Colorado district attorney in one region letting loose an individual who attempted a kidnapping of a child. There is a large problem on the left of individuals who believe that progressive politics allow them to use prosecutorial discretion not to enforce laws on the books. And by the way, the Trump administration is guilty of this too in regards to TikTok. Congress banned the Chinese spyware app TikTok. He hasn't enforced it. I can't stand that. And I don't have a policy prescription for enforce the laws on the books, but this is the case. Also, after 250 years of being a country, you're going to have quite the stack of federal laws that are on the books that are a large spaghetti bowl. So I understand the mess here. That said, regarding the illegal immigration situation, there is also an offer to self-deport. You can make money, you can leave the country, and that 10-year penalty on reapplying for citizenship does not apply to you, meaning that the only penalty there is for being caught and thrown out of the country for violating immigration law, because not only is it, as Mike alluded to, the civil problem of coming in the wrong way or not filing for migrant status properly or something along those lines, but individuals who do try to, over 5-10 years, evade law enforcement, evade immigration officials, I say take the money, get in the back of line, go through the immigration process the proper way, and then you can join the legal immigrants of this country who are, by the polling data, the most ardent supporters of the current immigration policies. It's like 65-70%, at least according to the latest Ipsos poll.
Okay, Mike, on the topic itself that we're talking about today, some arrested individuals had serious criminal records, while some did not. What is your opinion on whether should public policy treat illegal immigrant workers with no violent history? Should they be treated differently from those that don't?
Well, again, according to the new law, they shouldn't be. And again, these are not my words, Don. Caroline Leavitt back in March, and during the time when Caroline Leavitt said this from the White House press briefing room, we had a very popular immigration attorney who has a couple of high-profile cases on the books right now. And I said, you just heard what Caroline Leavitt said there, because they asked a specific question. I believe it was a CBS News correspondent that was asking how many of so far that have been captured by ICE had actual criminal history. And she said they're all criminals because they're here illegally, right? According to the new law. Now, Don, again, do you, me and Tony, do we feel that there is some callousness to some of the, yeah, I'm sure there's human empathy and compassion in some of these stories. I'm sure there is. And I just mentioned statistically before, 361 arrested, only 4 actually had criminal backgrounds. And that included a rape. I forget the other crime that was included in that. So can ICE discern that right now and do all of that with respect to being thrown things at them and trying to do all of this law enforcement work while they're trying to do and carry out the policies of the administration? They can't be expected to do all of that. So I do think that the president, yeah, I do think the president has business leaders in the agriculture sector and the construction sector have all pointed out to the president, like, there has to be a way to do this humane wise while not killing my workforce. But again, back to what we've been talking about. If you have workforce that's not legally having the documentation necessary to work here, then you're gonna get raided. And these are the things that are going to happen. So I don't know, Don. I'm kind of at my wit's end here with all of this, because it's like we keep going around in circles with all of this, but it's like the high level part of this is like the administration has changed this. This is the policy now. So they can't discern. Go ahead, Tony.
So sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Just to build off of that, I think that there is an answer so that we're not going around in circles, because these aren't new laws. It's simply bringing forward the law through full prosecutorial discretion, at least according to what's on the books and federal statutes. The issue is that in a lot of cases, you have sanctuary states who do know where there are illegal immigrants who are working in various processes, or perhaps they're working with an immigration official, immigration attorney, they're going through the asylum process, and they are in areas that there might be other illegal immigrants who do have violent criminal records and history. And ICE has asked, the Department of Homeland Security has asked, if you work in a state where you have these databases, these records, please share them with us so that we don't, when we do come to arrest the individuals who are committing rape or who are have a violent criminal history, domestic abuse is one that pops up quite frequently in these, or you're looking at the illegal business practices, right? Taking advantages of workers for cheap labor to skirt the laws, that it's not targeting just an open area. But when Gavin Newsom has forbade local law enforcement with working with federal law enforcement officials, when Karen Bass of Los Angeles has forbade, when J.B. Pritzker has forbade, when Massachusetts legislators have forbade, now you have a situation where ICE still has to uphold federal law. There are still violent criminals in these areas, but now they don't get the kind of intel and the resources that are necessary. And unfortunately, a lot of this is political stunting. It's not necessarily done to protect the dignity and compassion. They run certain aspects of those, but it's very hard for me to take Karen Bass seriously about her empathy and compassion for individuals who are just there to work and live, when she hasn't even signed off on the permits to rebuild huge parts of the Palisades in Los Angeles, and that she allowed her own police officers in the LA Sheriff's Office to be followed around by these groups, threatening them, throwing concrete at their heads. As you pointed out, yep, that's attempted murder. And it creates a system that is not going to make it easier for federal authorities to discern. And by the way, I do think that for people who are coming here, they came here illegally, but all they have done is made a life here, they've worked. I'm for lessening the amount of time or of a penalty for some kind of an immigration patriotization process. But we have to actually get the cooperation of states and the federal government to make that happen. Otherwise, you can't there's an old expression that you can't pan through a tsunami, meaning that you can't pan gold out of a rushing, roaring amount of water. Right now, we need state and federal cooperation so that we can sift through this a little more specifically.
Okay, Tony, but let me ask you one thing. Upholding federal law is one thing, but is it overreach in this situation at least, or using excessive force to have armored military vehicles, tear gas, and crowd control weapons at an agricultural work site, Tony?
So I'll make this answer quick because I don't want to double stack here against Mike and his time. But the short answer is I don't think the premise is quite accurate on that. They didn't show up to the farm to tear gas the workers. The tear gas didn't drop until individuals started throwing rocks at the police, which is attempted murder. So it's not as though they're dropping into the area, dropping some tear gas and some CN right out of the helicopters or throwing in the Humvees. Given the threats to law enforcement, a 700% increase. Given the domestic terror threats, there is currently Benjamin Song, an Antifa terror cell leader who is on the run after leading a terror cell of 10 individuals, 12 individuals maybe now, that were going to assault ICE officers and kill them outside of Alvarado, Texas. The threats are there. I don't think it's overkill to go in secure. And like some of the footage shows, there's individuals there that are very large bodied with the pink hair, stabbing a Mexican flag into the spokes of a Humvee or attempting to in there, right at that photo, actually really good B-roll team. That kind of stuff isn't just general protests. That's when you get into the riot territory, which I think Mike has delineated rather well.
Okay, Mike, I also want to move on to Trump's visit to Pittsburgh. So give us your thoughts on that situation, your overall feeling of this event.